Welcome to Wide Flank.
Okay. Welcome to episode 2 of 01Y. Um today we're going to be hi. Today we're going to be talking about Dune, the 2021 film adaptation. For anyone who has not listened to 01Y before, I'm Aleah.
I'm Teddy.
And I'm Danny. And my favorite New York City building is the Chrysler Building.
I forgot that was our
Little bit of a
icebreaker.
throwback for everyone. Cool. So we're talking about Dune. For those that don't know, Dune is the third attempted adaptation of the 1965 sci-fi novel by Frank Herbert. It is, that is it. It has a beautiful cover, I have to say. That particular print of it. I read the same one. So the novel originally came out in the 60s, before Star Wars, before Blade Runner, before every big sci-fi project that most people will think of or remember. It takes place in this science fiction future that is very advanced in some ways and not in others. Like, computers do not have a big role or any role really in this world. It's basically their space travel is really the big the main technological difference. But this edition of the story was directed by Denis Villeneuve, and there are a couple screenwriters involved. Eric Roth, I think, was the first one brought on and the main one. And it came out in theaters and on HBO Max a couple weeks ago, and it was a big international box office hit. It's doing pretty well in the US, still kind of seeing how that goes. I think the streaming release has caused some issues, but and we all watched it.
Yeah, we did. I forgot to watch, guys. I gotta be honest.
Danny, you saw it in theaters, right?
I saw it in theaters 3 times.
Oh.
In 1 week. So I saw it at the Magic Johnson AMC in Harlem. And then I saw it at an AMC in Union Square. And then I saw it in IMAX at the Lincoln Center on the largest screen in America. 100 feet by 80 feet. Which is too big, in case anyone was wondering. But so, yeah, I saw the shit out of it, I'd say.
Yeah, the whole thing is not in IMAX, right? Only a few scenes are.
The aspect ratio cuts back and forth the whole
Yeah,
movie.
that's psychotic. That's
Wait, so it's like this big, and then it's this big, and then it's this big again?
It's this big, then it's this big, then it's like widescreen and then tall vertical, then widescreen.
Is IMAX like square, or is it rectangle, or?
I think it's 1.43 to 1 is the actual IMAX aspect ratio.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, I feel like if you're not going to shoot the whole thing in IMAX, don't even bother.
Which was your did you prefer it in IMAX or not, Danny?
No, definitely not. I thought it was best. I saw it at the Magic Johnson Theater, is really nice. And that was definitely the best of the 3. It was like it was still a really big screen. It was like a some new Dolby system for audio and projection, and that was definitely the best experience of the 3. Though the IMAX sound was better. But I was also thought I had a pretty good seat on the chart, but I was sitting like this the whole movie, so my neck was like stiff, and I'm like turning my head to follow what's happening. It was a little, again, it's too big.
Well, it's like it's all around you.
What? Exactly.
You're
like,
really there.
It's like I'm an ant in their anthill.
An ant on the wall, as they say.
This is a movie I don't like going to the theater, but after watching this, I was like, Madeline, we should go see this in the theater, because it sounds amazing and looked amazing, and I was like, I still like this movie, but I think it would just be better. It would just be a great experience to see it in the theater.
Yeah, I'm also planning. Teddy and I watched it together on HBO Max on like a decent sized TV. But yeah, while watching it, I was thinking a lot about wanting to see it at a movie theater, and I am planning to go see it at a movie theater. So with that, maybe we can talk about just what we thought overall of the movie. Actually, sorry, I want to back up for a second. What was everyone's relationship to Dune before this?
I read Dune when I was 19 on a train trip in Europe. And that's basically was my alone time, was reading Dune. And it was amazing. I loved it. I haven't read it since. I watched the David Lynch movie, which we can talk. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit in a second. But it wasn't quite what I wanted, despite being cool. So I have a very vague memory of Dune. So I didn't remember a lot going into this.
Yeah, I similarly had read the book several years ago. I think I read it. I read it like in the last 7 years, probably, for the first time. And I liked it until about 3/4 of the way through. And then I was like, I don't like this book. But I think a lot of things about it are amazing. And I tried to watch the David Lynch movie a few months ago with my roommates and got about 2/3 of the way through and was like, I'm going to bed. But again, I think a lot of things about it are cool. So mixed feelings about Dune is how I came into this.
Why don't you like the book?
I wouldn't say I don't like the book. I think
what happened 2/3 of the way through it?
2/3 of the way through, it's when
spoilers for the second half of Dune in this episode.
Yeah, this is a big spoiler for the second half of Dune. When he like has the realization, when it becomes clear to Paul, the main character, that he is the Kwisatz Haderach, he has this weird, thank you. There's a whole thing where he's like, oh, I finally understand. It's like women are like this. Women can do this and men can do this. But because I'm a man who can do my special mind things that the women can do, like I have it all. It's like very gendered in a way that was really shocking, because nothing about the book doesn't feel like particularly gendered at all, let alone in a like traditional role based way. And I just found that very alarming and strange, and that as kind of like the key to understanding the world didn't make sense to me.
Isn't there like a scientific in the world reason for this? Isn't he like, don't the Bene Gesserits inherit memory of their matrilineal like ancestors? And because Paul's male, doesn't he inherit like both matrilineal and patrilineal like generational wisdom or something that like allows him to be the chosen one or something?
Danny,
I actually
as the most recent reader.
Yeah, so I read the book last month. Very quickly. I stopped riding my bike to work so that I could read it on the subway to and from. I loved it, but later I agree there were some, maybe not for the same reasons, but I had some issues later in the book. But to answer this question, I don't think Paul does not gain the matrilineal memory. It's his daughter is the one who gains all these memories. Paul basically does he like converts the poison to like a non-poisonous substance in his body, and has this, and it basically fully awakens his sight, as it's referred to in the movie. I don't know if it's called that in the book. But it's his 4-year-old daughter who can like speak, and has all of the memories of the Bene Gesserit generations.
Okay.
I think that maybe you might be merging there.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a while. Also, I want to make a note that all books, I think, have people way too young than they should be. Paul should not be 15. A 4-year-old shouldn't be a genius. Like, I remember, like, I read a Stephen King book where, like, a 10-year-old fights vampires. I'm like, no, this is too young. I'm sorry.
That's why 8th grade is so good.
Yes, right.
Right. But then
Danny,
you read about Alexander the Great, and it's like,
well, he was 20 or something.
I guess, yeah.
You could do anything at 20. Like, Luke Skywalker is, while you're still an idiot, don't get me wrong, you are capable of anything, I think. I don't think a 10-year-old is.
I think 15 is prety reasonable, though.
Sure. Wait, no, you can't.
Maybe not for what Paul does.
You can't kill a Fremen, a hardened Fremen in battle at 15. I'm sorry. No.
I don't know if you've spent your whole life training
with Gurney. Maybe. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Danny, what's your Dune experience? You just read the book. That's it.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the other adaptations. I haven't read the sequels yet. I've heard mixed reviews of them. I'm probably going to read the next book, and that'll be it.
Okay. Yeah, I want to read the next one as well.
Did you like the movie, Danny?
I did. I would say that I liked it. I didn't love it. I wasn't freaking out about it, but I had an amazing time seeing it in theaters. And part of that was the first movie I've seen since the Before times, and went with a bunch of people, so we had a great time getting to see trailers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the experience of seeing it, the visual spectacle of it is awesome, and definitely not. It's very artfully done. It's not visually stunning like an Avengers movie is. It really is this beautiful depiction of a world, and and the production is high quality as well, like a Disney movie would be.
Wait, can you tell me more about what you mean by visually stunning like an Avengers movie? And what did you say?
So, like, if you go see an Avengers movie, the CGI is perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Beauty and the Beast the production quality is amazing.
Yeah, or like Endgame, the visuals are spectacular, but they don't feel very
there's no soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like this was distracting or trying to cover up a weak story, weak performances, or anything like that. It felt like
it does, but it wasn't trying to.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of my feeling about the movie is like not everyone can be good at everything, right? And this movie is good at the visuals and the sound and the atmosphere and the world, and not as good at the people and the words they say. Yeah. But it doesn't feel like, it wasn't like we have the money to make a bunch of flashy effects and that will cover, and so we don't really need to worry too much about like whether the writing is good. It's like sort of incidental. Those things just happen alongside each other.
Yeah, and just I would also say that I found it extremely faithful to the book. And at some point we'll probably get into it. I think it ultimately hurts the movie as a movie in a lot of ways, but as someone who was a fan of the book, and I'm sure other fans of the book really appreciated that. So it definitely felt like Frank Herbert's vision.
Yeah, let's talk about Denis, because I think this is kind of, I think, how his movies are generally. So like, we always talk about how we always argue about Arrival because I hate it, and you guys don't. But what I always say is the squid were cool.
Yep.
And like the ink stuff is amazing, and like I think that carries on through all of his movies, right? Like, I hate Arrival because I think the script is terrible, and like it's mostly that's mostly what the movie is. And like Blade Runner looks amazing, but Blade Runner is also about like what it means to be a human, and like also it takes place in like Los Angeles, which like looks like shit. I mean, it still looks cool, and there's amazing stuff in it. But it's not. I don't know. A lot of that movie, I think, still, or that world is about. It's about storytelling and writing, and it needs to be good to be impactful, I think. And I think Dune is it's a fantasy movie, right? It's about this alien world. I do think there's a lot of cool stuff that I would like to talk about the book that he doesn't really capture, but like he does capture the worms, which are like, you know, an important part of the book and amazing, and the expanse of the desert and the ornithopters, like all this stuff is really this was like the story that was made for Denis, I feel like. And so while it could have been better, like this was sort of in some ways like maybe the perfect movie for him, right? He this is about as best he'll ever do, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was listening to him today. I listened to him and Chris Nolan talk about the movie at some screening of the film, and I think he would agree. He felt like this was what he was born to do, was to adapt this novel into a movie. Like since he was 13, when he read it was when he was first getting into like or wanting to learn more about how to make a movie, and he's just always felt that this was what like his dream project and what he wanted to put everything into. So I think he would probably agree with what you just said.
That's pretty incredible that he's like, yeah, my goal in life is to do this thing, and is able to do it, you know?
Yeah, but it's also like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah, it's true.
He's not that old, I don't think.
That's why he split up the story.
Right. Yeah, I can do it twice.
Yeah. Yeah, I also kept thinking while watching the movie that it felt like making this movie 10 years ago or 10 years before that or 10 years before that, like just wouldn't. It just felt like now is a really good time to make this movie in terms of the technology that's available, but also how much we have come to expect like certain things from CGI and from sci-fi worlds that are very flashy and loud and draw attention to themselves. And I think like the subtlety and beauty and kind of like warmth of the visual world of this movie was really exciting and refreshing when at a moment when I feel like we see a lot of effects that are really good, visual effects that are really good, but they're not always, but often they feel sort of cheap, despite how much they probably cost to to create. What do you guys think about, so in terms of the writing, I was just talking to my roommate Ben about this, and he was saying one of the reviews he read was talking about the exposition in the movie and that it was good. And I hadn't really thought about it. And I was sort of like, you bad?
Keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
No, I think there wasn't, I do, as Danny was saying, I think it's pretty true to the book. And I think the exposition is fairly light compared to other sci-fi movies, such as Ex Machina, also starring Oscar Isaac.
Well, it's
Teddy,
funny
do
you bring this up because
Mm-hmm.
Teddy and I were talking the other day about it, and Teddy has a
different take?
I think yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you can fill in the gaps here, Danny, because I'm not quite sure the what I said in our conversation, but I was just watching. I just watched the opening exposition, like the prologue, again right before we did this, and I also watched the Lord of the Rings prologue, and I was thinking, like, what I didn't like about the exposition, because I don't like it. It's very brief in the beginning, but essentially totally pointless, I think. Like, I think that opening prologue is terrible, and they don't do enough exposition throughout the movie, and they don't do it that well. I don't know. What do you think, Danny? Maybe you can say something that I can respond to, because
I'm Teddy's mentat.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's a mentat? We don't know.
Right, exactly. Well, I totally agree that I didn't know how I felt the first two viewings, but the third time I was like, this prologue is dumb. Like, this was for a movie that really it seems like it was strained by screen time, by runtime. Like, this should have been one of the first things to go to give us more time in this part of the story. But I mean, yeah, like there's a weird thing where like there are mentats in the book who are like basically math experts who focus on just like logical decision making, and they advise the great houses of the Imperium, and they kind of give you a little nugget for like people who know what a mentat is by having Thufir Hawat roll his eyes back at the very beginning of the movie while he makes a calculation. But then no one knows what that was or what that means. So there's just, yeah, I agree. There's kind of like, it's almost like Easter eggs instead of actually immersing us in these things. Like, and I think that adds up throughout the movie.
Right. So one of the things I want to talk about, like why Dune is good, is, sorry, do you want to say something, Aleah? Because go ahead. Okay, yeah. So I think the Butlerian Jihad, when all the humans get rid of all the computers, is like one of the coolest conceits of the Dune universe, right? It's, how do you tell a sci-fi story without addressing AI in the future, right? You have to deal with AI, artificial intelligence, right? So is it everywhere? Is it for all our listeners who don't know what AI is, got to catch them up to speed. And what Frank Herbert does is, in order to make this an interesting space that's like takes place, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years in the future, is AIs were too good, and I don't know exactly what happened, but humans basically like overthrew machines that took over. It was like basically the Matrix happened, then humans took over, and they killed all the machines. They're like, no more, we can never go do this again. Right? Like, that to me is like such an important part of the Dune universe, and it's not talked about at all. Like, that to me could have been the prologue, right? Like tell something, like, this is pure exposition. Like, let's mainline some facts into the audience before we get into the drama. And they don't do it, right? They tell you a totally useless plot point that I actually think confuses the whole movie. Like, the Harkonnens are there, they leave, and then they come right back. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, if we're making a movie
also, we learn that in the movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think Peter Jackson did a good job with this, right? It's like, I don't know, like, if you're making a movie that's not a direct copy of a book, it's like, let's reinvent some new thing. Like, the Harkonnens actually just want to take over the planet from the Atreides, right? Like, why don't we just have that be the main thing? Not like they got kicked out and then came right back. I don't know. I just thought that whole thing was weird.
It sets the movie up almost like it's going to be about this indigenous people fighting against like imperial oppressors, which loosely is the plot of the like entire Dune saga, but is not real. This movie's not really about that. So I agree, it sets a strange tone, and it's also like the character introducing you to it is not in the movie until the last 20 minutes, right? So I don't know. It's very. Yeah, I'm totally on board.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because like bringing up the Lord of the Rings prologue, like that's a really nice example of it's not pretending to be anything but exposition. It's not like it's gently inserting information along the way in a way that is natural. It's like there is a voiceover that will now explain to you what happened before the plot of this movie begins. But I think viewers who are coming to like a sci-fi or fantasy world are totally open to that, right? And you just have to do it well, which obviously, like with the way that this movie looks, you can do that beautifully. But yeah, if you why squander that opportunity on information that doesn't frame the movie in a super helpful way, and also gives you information you're probably going to get over the course of the movie anyway. This is like the reason Teddy and Danny know that I prefer to have like no spoilers at all. If in an ideal world, I would go into every piece of art I experience like completely blind and then learn more about it afterwards. And this is part of why. It's because like I love like slowly collecting the pieces of information over the course of the story, and something that gives you the pieces before the story begins doesn't really help. Something that gives you pieces that are not in the story does help.
Yeah, and I have a lot of, I assume we all do, but I have a lot of good things to say about this movie. One thing that I think this ties in well with talking about the prologue is kind of the challenges presented and the issues caused by it being a part one. Only covering half a story and maybe setting up a second, maybe being designed to set up a sequel. I think the reason I didn't love the movie most of all is because there's so little time before the main action in this part of the story, which is which looks and feels like is the Harkonnen invasion of Arrakis. And there's just no time on Arrakis before that happens. You're an hour and 30 minutes into the movie when Paul and Jessica are in the tent together, and so in an hour and a half you've gone like that's already over, and there's still another hour in the movie, And I think that I would have loved more time on Arrakis before the invasion, and something like this prologue, I would have much rather had more time feeling the building pressure, mounting pressure, and maybe you see that through Oscar Isaac's character, through Duke Leto, because that in the book is huge. It's like sickening. You can tell that everything is going wrong, and the characters aren't necessarily failing, right? Duke Leto has just walked into a trap because there was nothing else he could do, and he did his best to get out of it, right? And he tried to gnaw off his own leg, and it just that felt really absent from the film, and I think that
it simultaneously is long, only part one, so it has tons of freedom, but also feels rushed and doesn't really do anything. It's like I'm like pretty amazed at the mess of the movie, like in terms of pacing and all that stuff. Like it could have been much slower. Like I kept thinking like maybe this should have just been a TV show instead of like it was released on HBO, right? I mean, obviously we couldn't have spent as much money on making it, but it's like either make it a solid movie, maybe even a trilogy, but like I don't know, like a two-parter. It just felt really weird.
I actually think 2 parts is totally fine. I think this just needed to end sooner in the story, and have more time on Arrakis. That's what I think. But I also think if Denis really wants to flesh it out, trilogy I think is totally fine.
I wonder also if, to your point, Danny, there may be some ways, like I think there are a lot of scenes that I recognized as directly lifted from the book, and I think maybe there are ways to achieve what those scenes achieve, but in a briefer and different way in a movie.
I wish there was someone here who didn't read the book, because I know what everything is because I've read the book even a long time ago. So like I wasn't totally clueless, but I would have no idea what was going on, I don't think, if I hadn't read it. So
I've seen it with a few people who didn't read the book, and people are less lost than I thought they would be.
Okay.
But I think part of that is they sacrificed exposition, right? They made the universe a lot smaller,
Right.
So people know everyone's like seem to know everyone's name and kind of get the idea of what's going on. But
I do
don't know.
think
I feel like
other
a great
than the
movie,
prologue. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I feel like a really amazing movie would find a way to not dumb down or shrink the world and still bring people along with you. But
So who's the emperor? Like they don't talk about him at all. How many great houses are there? Like what? Like this is a political book, right? Like there's so like that whole not council meeting, the whole like
the Landsgrad.
Yeah, like that whole scene where they put their seal on the piece of paper, like that could have been exposition or better exposition, but like nothing happened. It was so stupid. I was like, I don't remember who the emperor is. I don't remember anything about the political climate of this world. And it's the driving force of the drama, right? Like, why did the emperor make the Harkonnens leave and send the Atreides there? Can you tell me in the context of the movie why that happened?
Repeat. Sorry, say the question again.
Why did the emperor kick the Harkonnen out and send the Atreides there only to kill all of them?
In the movie, the Baron says to Rabin, his nephew, that the emperor is a jealous man and the Atreides are gaining influence and power. And Duke Leto also says that the other great houses look to us for leadership. So I think it's described in the movie as just being a Duke Leto is getting stronger and the emperor is feeling threatened by it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I got too. And I was just like, that's it. Really? That's all that's all they're giving us.
Am I completely making up the idea of like whether that it is questionable whether or not the emperor exists?
In the first half of the story, like in the book even, or just
Yeah.
I guess you don't see the emperor as a character in the first half. But I think maybe some like a fan theory would, if you'd only read the first book one or the first half, would be that maybe the emperor is not actually there, but I don't think doesn't feel like it's designed that way.
Yeah, I think I may be conflating it with another another story.
Yeah.
I get Dune mixed up with The Left Hand of Darkness, even though they're really different. They also have a lot of things in common, and The Left Hand of Darkness was published in 1969, and is kind of in a similar universe, and I think it's better. But and the writing is really good, which is exciting in sci-fi. But I think there may be something like that in Left Hand of Darkness. Anyway, I thought the Emperor stuff made some sense in the logic of the movie. Like, it was very clear that it was meant to be the Atreides were meant to fail and the Harkonnens were meant to then win. What the Emperor's motivations were for that, I was not.
Yeah,
I just pick up on, but
it's especially confusing to me because they were just there. It's like really, I like found it very silly.
Well, again, I think this is the speed at which everything happens is a problem here, right?
Right.
Because the reason in the book is that they cannot invade Caladan. Like the Atreides soldiers are too strong. They dominate on this ocean planet. There's no way the Emperor could ever invade.
Right.
Or
sea power and land power.
Exactly. But this was a way to get them off-world into a new environment and kind of slowly tear them apart from the inside and then invade. Because there's all kinds of espionage in the book happening on Arrakis. And
they couldn't kill they only have like 30 soldiers. I'm surprised they couldn't kill them on Caladan. All they have to do is a cheeky flank maneuver, and they'll kill all of them.
Yeah, it seemed like being able to like fly like that would be super useful in the desert. You don't have to worry about the non-rhythmic walking.
Yeah, that was weird.
I felt like there was some inconsistency when they were in the desert of like whether it was safe to walk normally or not. There were some moments where it seemed like they were just walking or running. And I mean, I think to a certain extent, it's like the longer you do it for, the more dangerous it becomes, because a worm might not sense you right away, but it will eventually.
Yeah, my impression is you don't have to. It's not if you touch the sand, a worm comes to you. It's like there has to be one in the area or something.
Yeah, I mean, a worm always comes to a harvester, but it doesn't always come to life forms, I think. Man, I wanna talk about good things about the movie, but I do think this is a great time to talk about the desert and how in the book the desert is like almost a character, or at least it's as much of a character as like the Emperor is. It's just this huge force, and you can like feel it in every scene that people are there for, and you can feel the thirst of the characters. And just in the movie, the desert is beautiful and vast and like all encompassing, but it does not feel dangerous. I don't know. It just feels like, or I don't know. Maybe not just the desert, but just the environment doesn't feel that dangerous. Everyone is constantly taking off their stillsuit masks. Paul is walking around outside dressed up, in his military uniform, and talking to the guy watering the trees, and he doesn't seem to be suffering from the heat at all. And it's like these characters just came from like this humid, wet ocean planet and are now like not having any difficulty adjusting, except to the only challenge they have is like they don't know anything about worms or don't know anything about the people there, right?
I kept trying to imagine the heat. I kept being like, wow, it like seems like they're just wearing normal clothes. Like, I wonder how hot it is, because there are a couple of moments where characters say, like, Dr. Liet Kynes at one point is like, you won't survive a minute out in the desert without your still suit on, but then they do.
Right. Well, I was also wondering, because I do remember this too, Danny, but then I was like, I feel like they pulled a trick on me, because like you could survive in the desert for like hours without water. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I understand the still suit is like a useful thing to do like for weeks, but like you like, I don't know. It's still, it's like not that deadly because it's hot and there's no water. It's just like bad to live there. But yeah, I feel like they really tried to do that with the movie by like just saying it a lot, and it just like felt wrong. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of a lot of telling and not showing in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
And the desert is probably the biggest example. But in the book, I mean, like Liet Kynes dies in the desert with wearing a still suit, like just can't survive the desert and like can't make it to the next checkpoint basically. So I do think that
from a spice explosion.
Yeah, exactly. But so I do think, I think it is well done in the book, or at least well communicated.
One other thing in terms of exposition is the melange, like the spice is not like part of the no computers is they need spice for space travel, and like that we don't have that exposition means we don't really understand the usefulness of the spice. We also, so much of the spice, I feel like spice is so important, and like we don't really talk about it in the movie. It's like,
except that Paul is allergic.
Yeah.
Sensitive.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I don't know. It's like it's an amazing drug that everybody takes. It's like it's, I don't know. I feel like it really needed to be talked about. It's like not talking about money and drugs at the same time. It's like this super, super important thing to the universe, and is the whole reason anything works. And they literally don't even say melange. They just say like spice is valuable, right? Like they call it spice. I don't know. It's just, I feel like we needed more time.
It is
with that.
said that it's necessary for space travel,
but that's it. They just say it's necessary for space
Right.
travel. Yeah,
Which almost makes it sound like a fuel, and
Yeah.
not a mind-altering substance that lets them navigate the galaxy.
right.
Yeah, I think this is another thing is like it's weird that there are kind of these symbols and themes that are dumbed down or streamlined, but there's I don't know. I was thinking about like Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck are these two characters in the book who are kind of cool, but not like they're not as interesting as basically any other character. And to me, it's like why not making a decision like, okay, I'm just going to make Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho one character in this film because they don't really serve a unique purpose in the story I'm trying to tell. And like free up time to explore the themes and symbols that are so meaningful in the book and really well fleshed out. So whether like the Spice, right? It's just instead we get all the screen time of Josh Brolin and Jason Momoa. And it's like, cool, but
I love that idea. I also think because the movie kind of feels like a part one, it's like by the time we get, like Duncan's death doesn't feel, I feel like they spend a lot of time trying to be like, oh, Duncan and Paul have this great relationship, which they do, you know, and like I kind of bought into that, but I was like, I haven't spent enough time around this person to really care that he's dying. But if the Gurney relationship and the Duncan relationship were combined into one and we got a little more, that was one relationship developed over the movie, I think. Yeah. And it would help that as well.
Yeah, what the fuck is Jason Momoa doing in this movie?
I thought he was fine.
Oh my god.
I thought Josh Brolin was worse.
Josh Brolin was bad too. We should combine them into one character who's played by a better actor than both of them.
Played by Sean Bean.
He was so bad. That was the closest I've come to dying.
And I will tell you, I have never come so close to dying.
He was so bad. Holy shit.
Yeah, this is a great time to talk about the acting in general. But the way I feel about Jason Momoa generally is like he seems like he's really fun to have on set and really good for the energy of the cast. And I mean, I think some moments he was fine in this movie, but that council scene is really brutal.
Thank you for your gift of water, of moisture.
We accept it in the nature at which it was given.
Compare that to like Sean Bean as Boromir at the council meeting, right? Or
right.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually, like as a cat, I think if that character were written differently, it could have worked better. I don't know, because I feel like he is kind of his name is Duncan Idaho. Like that's another part of the problem is like this is kind of a stupid character, but I will never get over his name being Duncan Idaho. It's so silly. It's so silly.
Yeah, reading the book, I remember when he first comes in, I was like, what? It's like Paul, I mean, even Paul's a little weird, but like Paul Atreides, Duke Leto, Baron Harkonnen,
and Duncan Idaho.
He's a good old American.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is I feel like he kind of doesn't fit into the world of the story anyway, and so I think that's part of the problem too. I don't think we can put it all on Jason. And Josh Brolin also isn't very good, but what is his character? Who is his character? Like, he's not given anything to work with, you know?
When he's telling him about the Harkonnens, by the way, I really want to say Harkonnen because that's how I always read it.
Me too.
They're brutal. I was like, oh no, this movie's going to be trash.
You know who is good?
Timothée.
I mean, yes, but Javier Bardem.
Oh yeah, because he just doesn't give a shit.
It's just I'm always so excited about characters like that though, where it's like, I mean, how much he's in so little of the movie, he has so little to say, and he just like every single line, it's like incredible. It's just such a good example of like I think a lot of people can be good at acting if they have good directing and good writing, but some people can just walk in and no matter what the fuck is given to them, it's gonna be so good and so compelling, and you're just gonna be like, say more. And yeah, he does it. It's awesome.
Yeah, he has a huge role in the second half, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah,
we're gonna get him and Zendaya a lot in part 2, but
oh my god, if I saw one more shot of Zendaya looking over her shoulder at us, I was going to.
What the fuck?
Also, how many of those are the same shot? Like, I know it's supposed to be his dream, but still, it was like, okay, we get it.
Also, like, dreams are messages from the deep, right? this opening line, which also I was not clear that was in the movie the first time I saw it. I couldn't tell if I was still watching previews in the theater.
Yeah.
But there's so many interesting visions and dreams in the book, and instead it's replaced by just Zendaya over and over.
And just looking at her.
Sorry, I shouldn't say
something.
Zendaya because, like, I think she was great in the part she's in. I'm very excited about the second part. I should say, like, yeah, we're like, there's so much to take in and think about what's happening right now, and we're getting these visions not of the desert or I don't know these other things. We're getting like Zendaya 3 times before we even leave Caledon. You know?
Just looking, most important, like just
Right.
her staring at you or kissing Paul. It's like none of this really matters.
Yeah, it feels very like a pretty boy dreams about a pretty girl. It's like, okay. I mean,
Do we
once
like
or twice, but 5 times?
Do we like Timothée?
I do, yeah. I thought he was good. I kept waiting for him to be bad, and he wasn't.
I think, I mean, obviously the goal was to portray Paul as he is in the book, and I think he does an amazing job. And basically all the criticism I've read of either his performance or the writing of the character is that he's very flat, feels like a little bit of a shallow character, I guess. And that's exactly what it's like in the book. And I think he played it perfectly. And I loved it. Loved him.
Yeah. I don't know, Aleah, you've seen all his other movies. Do you think, does he play like a pretty different character than those? Because I've only seen him, I think, in The King, that Netflix movie, that's like Henry IV. And he plays like the exact same character as this.
Yeah, I mean, the movies I've seen him in are like contemporary, where he plays contemporary characters. So I feel like it's a little bit easier that it's like if you put someone in this world and they are serious, it's gonna feel very different from like a teenager in Sacramento in the 90s, you know?
But I mean, in terms of his acting style, like, is he dark and brooding in those movies? You know,
No,
that's all.
not really. Well, he is in Lady Bird a little bit, but not really. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's given. I don't think this character is supposed to be very, like, elaborate and unique as a person. Like, I think his performance is specific enough, but I think this, like so many of these stories, it's like the person the protagonist at the center of the story is like the least interesting or the least unique person in the world. They're sort of like noble and slightly brooding, but not too emotional, not too flawed, but a little flawed. Yeah.
I'm so glad he's not funny. Like I can't tell you how glad I was that this movie wasn't full of comedy. Like like so many movies these days are sarcastic or not serious, and like I was just so relieved to see a movie that's trying really hard.
Yeah.
It's like so sad that I was like that my expectations were so low for that. I just feel like it's a state of Hollywood in general. But anyway, that's another.
I'm very proud of them for doing that. Yeah. Very happy with them. And I mean the physicality of his character. Well, actually, I have two more things to say about Timothy. He would tell me to say it however I like. That's what I've heard him say. He would, but yeah, I think
it's a hard T.
It is. It definitely is. But he tells people they can say whatever they want.
It is. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, we're also not saying Javier Bardem correctly, you know, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Danny, go on. What do you think about Timothée?
His physical presence is exactly what I imagine Paul to be in the book. Like a really kind of scrawny, but kind of, I don't know, well postured and poised and clearly not weak character. And I think it works really well in this universe where he's like a really good knife fighter, and fast, but yeah, is not like insanely strong and powerful. So I think like in that the casting lines up really well, and he portrays it really well. And then I mean a huge challenge for all of the actors and the writers, but is that so much of the text of the book is characters' thoughts, and there's probably there's as much or double the amount of thoughts as there is dialogue in the book, and that's very difficult to put on screen. And, in the David Lynch version, I haven't seen the whole thing, but one part I saw is it was voiceovered by the characters in each scene, which definitely didn't work. And I'm really glad that they didn't do that in this one. But I think there was a lot of like unspoken. There was a lot of physical acting that did a great job of expressing that, especially from Chalamet, and then Rebecca Ferguson, I think, was the true champion of the film in this regard.
I did not like. I don't think it was her performance, but I did not like the way that all of her big emotional moments were handled. I just felt like everything else was very like still and composed, and then she would just be like, and I was like, I don't really know what's happening here.
She's a much better character in the book.
Yeah.
She's like...
I think her acting is very good. And I think there's a lot of moments where she has a lot under the surface, which is always really exciting to watch. But
yeah, I mean, she's definitely been reined in quite a bit in the movie. Mm-hmm. She is like an extremely capable, and she has a ton of control in the book. And you see it in some moments, like when she is interviewing the housekeepers, or she's meeting them. Like, you see this kind of, this concubine of the Duke, right, of a great house, like this power and I don't know, like there's her power and skills come through very clearly. And then, but yeah, for a lot of the movie, she is just getting control over her emotions, right? Which also in the book, she has, I think all those moments happen in the book that happen in the movie, but she's not physically so shaken up and like outwardly expressing it. It's like a quick internal struggle that she demonstrates a lot of power over. And in this, I feel like it seems like she's just tough as opposed to like a master of emotions and of her body and mind.
Okay, it's time for a break.
Yeah, I think everything we're saying is pretty much that this is like a good visual accompaniment to the book. It doesn't quite stand alone, in my opinion. I would really like to, talk to just a movie watcher to get like their full opinion. And if you're just a movie watcher, you can let us know. But it looked amazing, and it was like the perfect visual accompaniment to the book. I think just even with the opening exposition, me thinking it was dumb, but like just the harvester on the spice, just the way the fire looked, just looked so, the heat looked so awesome. And also they did an amazing job with the worms, but even more than the worms looking awesome is the like baleen teeth of the worms and the way like sand filters through that. I just thought was like obviously so aquatic and reminded me like of whales, but also just like looked incredible, and like the way people sank into it. The whole visualization of all that was just so thrilling and amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there are so much of the big stuff of the movie is incredible to look at, like the worms, like the desert. Even I also was very excited about the I don't even know what it is, the like ship coming out of the water on Caledon and the water being displaced, which also is kind of a fun like preview of what you're going to get in the desert. But there were so many like littler visual details too that were so beautiful, which is part of why I want to see it in theaters and also just see it again to be able to notice more. Like the when Paul is watching the sort of informational hologram videos about Arrakis to try and learn about it, and behind him there's that like beautiful golden
Fish headboard.
He has his golden fish headboard in his room, but then there's another one that's like a golden like depiction of the desert and this like and a big long worm, and the teeth are shown on it, and it's before we actually see the worms. Or maybe it's not before we see the worms. Anyway, there are a lot of like smaller things throughout too that I think are so cool.
Yeah, and the sand around the sandworms look amazing. Like the sand waves are beautiful. And there's one shot, I think, when the worm like is face out looking straight at Paul and Jessica later in the film, but as it's approaching, there's this amazing like almost like an explosion of sand as it comes up that sticks out for me.
And then when it comes back down, there's like it's like the whole topography of the desert there has changed. It's really cool.
And I was just listening to Denis talking about how their like shooting location for the desert was he didn't want to shoot any of it on green screen, or as little of it on green screen as possible. Like he wanted to have this white desert, white sand, white sky look, and be able to do it just with camera tricks like overexposing and adding dust to the shot kind of thing, and not having to draw as much of it as possible. I'm sure like the topography change from the worm was done after the fact, but I know they said they got like super lucky when they were in Jordan filming all these shots. But yeah, just beautiful sand and beautiful. I mean, Caladan also looks amazing. Mm-hmm. Those like misty shots with the Bene Gesserit, and the very strange scene where Paul and Jessica are talking from like 20 feet away in the mist.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that. I couldn't tell if that was like trying to show that they can communicate from afar well, or it was just a mistake. And yeah, that ship coming out of the water is another one that jumps out.
Yeah. So what about the score?
Best part of the score, I think, is the part where the ship comes out of the water and Timothy's walking along the beach. There, it's like it just gets really loud, and it, I don't know, makes Timothy look really cool while he's walking, and that's my favorite part of the score.
It's really aggressive, but I kind of feel like you have to go all the way or don't go there, you know? So I'm glad it didn't feel like there was no moment where it jumped out at me as too much. It was like the whole time I was like, wow, this is a lot of music.
I asked earlier, like, do you think Denis visioned these shots with some woman like singing super loudly? Like, it's almost diegetic, the vocals and a lot of it, and it's like I had to be like, wait, is this happening in the scene, or is this what's going on? Like, it was so invasive for so much of the movie. I don't think it was bad, but it was like so strong. Like, I imagine if I was a director, I'd be like, what did you do? Like, I want music. Like, it's like almost putting voiceover in the film or something. It's like really overpowering, which I don't know, as a viewer I thought it was so cool, but it's a pretty bold thing to do as a score. Or
yeah, there's like the moment with Leah Kynes and Duncan, Idaho, where when Leah Kynes is like looking over, I don't know if it's Arakeen or another city, and it just the singing explodes in. I was like, what? Like, nothing's really happening. So sometimes it, yeah, I agree. It was too much, but I was in this interview I was listening to, it was Denis and Chris Nolan, and Chris Nolan has used Hans Zimmer on every movie except Tenet, basically, and
That's what went wrong.
He didn't do the score of Tenet because he was working on the score for Dune, which I thought was funny, and they kind of like hinted at in this conversation. But it sounded like he was really obsessed, and he didn't communicate with Denis very much at all while he was working on it. I mean, he would talk to him, but he didn't send him anything, and then kind of came to him with the whole thing and this whole vision for the film. And so I don't know.
And did he like it? Does
I think he does like it, but it did seem like he left it. I kind of just like left it in his hands in a lot of ways. The way he's kind of describing it, he's like he was describing what Hans Zimmer did, and just kind of said like, yeah, and that's what he did. He definitely seemed happy with it though.
Yeah,
and I do think it's mostly good.
The one thing that was a little weird to me was like there's the like bagpipe thing when the Atreides first arrive on Dune, on Arrakis, and then there's another like callback to the bagpipe thing later, and so much of the like desert music is very like Eastern. And then there's also a bunch of throat singing, which also is like done in Mongolia and other places, and it just felt a little bit like our central characters are Scots-Irish and everybody else is like vaguely brown from somewhere else. And it's like,
yeah, I wasn't super hyped on like the bad people having Mongolian throat singing going on. Like, yeah. I mean, I guess like keeping with like the imperialistic nature of Dune.
But the bad people are, I don't know. But I guess also the desert people are supposed to be kind of good or neutral.
Right.
So
were you thinking about the Sardaukar?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least they're white. For the ones we see are white of the Sardaukar.
I feel like I guess everybody comes from Earth. I think
in real life or in Dune?
In Dune. In real life, we came from another planet first. And yeah, I mean, I guess, right. I think when he wrote this, it was probably much more novel to have like a book about the Middle East. People probably didn't know a lot about Islam and like what happened there. And for us, it's like, this is like, oh yeah, obviously this is a bunch of Arabs and this is all oil. But I think it would have been, a little more subtle back in the 60s. Which I don't know how to feel about, but just there's some like vague Orientalism going on, kind of like a Lawrence of Arabia type stuff going on here.
Shot in the same location in Jordan as Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what that's about at all?
It's like only from what I heard Denis and Chris Nolan say about it. Which is that it's like
I love that you call him Chris, by the way.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Your pals.
Yeah. I know that it's like someone like kind of rises to power, but it is a pawn, actually kind of a pawn of the imperialists or like the colonialists in the area.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very similar story, right? It's like about a white British guy who comes there and they like are like, oh, you're actually pretty cool, unlike all the other white British guys who've colonized us, and we'll make you one of us, which I think is a true story. But
a related phenomenon in this movie is that I keep seeing in a lot of places is like in speculative fiction and also in kind of like stylized or like dramatized or fictionalized historical stories. It's like in this imagined world, there are lots of people of different races, but it's like always the central characters are white, but there are a lot of people of color in like the featured and supporting and ancillary roles, which, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to like keep looking out for it more, because this is the kind of thing that it's like if it happens in one movie, like whatever, but if it's like every speculative fiction movie, it's like, well, in this future world, people of all colors are just like have ended up on this planet, but like we only care about the white people and it's going to be their story, which is definitely happening here to an extent.
Paul's boring. We don't really care about him. We mostly care about the people he's interacting with.
I mean, Leah Kynes is like my favorite character in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the book too. I love Kynes in the book.
Yeah.
The well, and I'm curious if people who saw the movie and hadn't read the book see it as a white savior film, or at least like a building up to a white savior film. Which I don't know. I've definitely seen the movie talked about that way, but normally it's by people who are talking about how it's not actually that because they know the full story. I am curious if a lot of people kind of tuned it out or were not interested because it came across that way. It seems like it probably does from what I saw.
Well, he didn't save anybody, so it's not a white savior movie.
That's a good point. It's foolish criticism.
Right.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, he's just first made, like, they're just getting involved, right? So like, it's not.
They're saving him, but
Right.
I guess that is usually how the white savior. Well, I don't know if that's. It's more like Pocahontas than like a white savior story.
Then Daenerys.
Yeah, it's Lawrence of Arabia. It's like white person accepted into the the group of indigenous people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say two quick things about the music and sound. I loved the use of silence in the film also. I think there's only two big moments where it happens, but one is when they're at that ecological installation and the Sardaukar kind of ambush them and they lower down and it's totally silent. And it's kind of a bit like when we talked about A Quiet Place. I wish that had been silent for a little longer especially before the music comes in. It kind of, they start lowering down, you start to hear their footprints and the scores coming in. And I wish it was just a little more of just the sound. But it was very effective in that scene. And I also think that there was a great symbiosis between the sound editing and mixing and the score. Like there was a lot of times where the sounds of what was happening almost felt like a part of the music, or what you're hearing in the music was sound effects in the scenes. And I thought that it made for a very immersive auditory experience.
Yeah. So is the other big silence in the duel at the near the end?
Yeah. Or
because there's no music in that fight.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not silent, but there is no music. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just the sounds of them fighting.
Yeah. Which maybe I was in similar way that Teddy was really happy about them not using humor. I don't know. This was like, I was so glad that the fight was not this big dramatic
choreographed,
yeah, it's like too fast to see what's going on, so you get this idea that they're both really good, and then Paul wins so fast, and it's it's one of the best fight scenes I've seen in a movie in as long as I can remember. I was really psyched since A New Hope, basically.
Yeah, I think any fight scene that's short is usually really good. I don't think fights were ever very long. Right? I think they were over pretty quickly. But yeah, if you watch a fencing match, it's fights happen pretty fast.
I liked that scene. I felt like I was very aware of how close we were to the end of the movie. And I was like, man, I want this part of the movie. I'm so psyched. And
yeah, I was at that point I was really feeling like, wow, I wish this was a series.
Yeah.
It does feel like there's I mean, if they execute to the same degree that they did on this film, I think this could make for like one of the best 5 hours of film or like a visual media that you can really get. Like I feel like with the completed story, it could be A lot of the feelings that I didn't, or a lot of the emptiness I kind of felt in this first part. I'm very excited to see it all together, and it feels like then it might be a little more satisfying.
Yeah, I think the writing is still gonna get in the way for me, but I feel like it's so stunning visually. Like I almost just want to like I wish we could just like garble the dialogue so we can't understand anything they're saying and just experience it that way.
Yeah,
Watch it, like in Mandarin or something, a language I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely feeling like we should just have nobody talking.
I know, and you always say this about movies, and I'm always like, oh, Teddy. But I really felt that way in this movie.
Well, we're going to get a lot more Javier.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
In the second
him
half,
and Zendaya can talk to each other. That's fine.
Yeah, they're both going to talk a lot, so you won't have to hear the same people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Desert power.
Oh my god.
Which in the book is awesome.
I was kind of bummed that they showed the sandworm riding already. Like they kind of like just tossed it in at the end. I was like, this is like an amazing thing that happens in the book. I don't know.
I think you could have missed it too, which I guess is okay. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish the reveal was a little better.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do? Arrakis.
My Dune, as the Baron says.
My June, as he says.
Oh my god, the goop. The Baron Harkonnen's goop.
Oh yeah.
We didn't
So
get
good.
enough
Not in
Baron
the book.
Harkonnen. We did not get enough Baron Harkonnen. He's a gross, disgusting man that I wanted to see more of. That is the best thing about David Lynch's Dune.
Yes, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
He is so fucking disgusting in that movie, and it's awesome. I love it.
It's like sickening. Yeah.
You guys are gonna love part 2. All these characters get a ton of time.
Great.
Marvel characters should just stop getting cast in other movies. If I'm gonna see them,
There shouldn't be any more Marvel movies, and then we can solve that problem.
yeah.
Who are you talking about?
Josh Brolin and the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy who plays
John Cena.
John Cena?
Is that not his name?
John.
The Baron's nephew.
The Baron's
Yeah.
nephew? Is that his name?
I don't
Are
know.
you thinking of John Cena?
Probably.
Okay. Well, I don't know the name of the actor, but there is an actor named John Cena. But anyways, yeah, like seeing him for me, it's like he's just this joke character in the Marvel movies, and I just couldn't shake that. But that's not anyone's fault other than mine.
Yeah, he was
Stellan
fun.
Skarsgård.
Yes.
All the way.
He's so good. Anyone from Scandinavia is a good actor, if you ask me.
I really loved the Reverend Mother also, and I loved Liette Kynes, the actor. I thought she was great.
Yeah, they were both really good.
The box scene, I thought that was awesome, and one of the best depiction, maybe the best depiction of the book in the movie is the put your hand into the box.
Yeah,
What's in the box?
Yeah, that was good. That was just like really solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I remember like when it shows his hand burning, I was like, oh yeah, that he says that in the book. He thought his hand was turning to like a burnt crisp.
It was really fun to watch it and have like little flashes of memories from the book. All right, so what's everyone's rating?
1, baby.
Danny.
1.
Don't call me
for
baby.
sure. Definitely a 1. Big 1.
Yeah.
In theaters especially.
If you can't see, it's probably a 0, but the audio is still really cool.
I was gonna say, yeah. I bet the audio is freaking awesome. I feel like this would be a great movie to listen to.
Okay, great. It's a 1 all around.
And a rare occurrence where reading the book will actually, I think, make watching the movie better. It's not like other things where reading the book makes you disappoints you when you see the movie. Yeah, I would. If you're willing to wait, read the book then see it, or read it after seeing it, see it again.
Epic.
Whatever you want to do.
Epic. I fucking love it. All right,
Yeah.
that's a wrap.
That's Dune.
That's
Part
Dune. We're gonna be reviewing I was Waterworld. We're gonna be reviewing Waterworld next.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be freaking awesome.
We're
God.
gonna do 8 episodes on the 8 episodes of the Dune miniseries that came out in the early 2000s. That's next.
Awesome. All right, guys, be good, be well.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye bye.